Where are the signs that things are changing for the better? Let's start with Susan now.
Thanks, Afia. So I want to refer back to this project that I'm with the Global Assembly. And I think just to give a bit of context, what we call citizens' assemblies now are this brilliantly simple idea of gathering a snapshot of a given populace, not through election, as many parliamentary bodies are composed, or self-selection, like in many stakeholder groups, or even nomination. Right? Rather, the members of a citizens' assembly are selected by nothing else other than random lottery that is stratified to collect a representative, or what you might call descriptive sample of a given population, and then having this cross-section discuss, learn from each other and experts to come up with solutions for the problems that they're facing. And I think 20 years ago, this idea of citizens' assemblies proliferating around the world to address would have been unthinkable to a lot of people. But what we're recently seeing is the surge of climate assemblies through the collective effort of academics and climate participation practitioners, this growing interest in exploring process-based innovations for how we address the climate crisis, like citizens' assemblies, in sort of multi-form ways around the world. And to share a little bit from the experience that we've had in our team, in June of this year, what essentially happened was that 100 pins were dropped on a map of the world using an algorithm that was weighed by population density. Selected locations included places like Socotra off the coast of Yemen, which is one of the least densely populated locations on Earth. And then in each of these locations where a pin was dropped, community organizations went out into their communities to recruit potential participants. The 100 members of what would become the Global Assembly, who had arrived through radically different means and routes than most of our politicians, came together on Zoom, literally across time and space and difference and language, to then co-create solutions together for how to address the climate and ecological crisis. We're talking about an assembly where only 60% of our members were fully literate. Members are speaking 30 different languages. Their backgrounds are ranging from goat herders to gold miners, physicists and dressmakers. This is a stark departure from what we would expect decision-making bodies to look like at the global level. Yet their final recommendations, which they entitled the People's Declaration on the Sustainable Future of Planet Earth, plots a future forward that's centered on equity, that calls for innovative measures like greater civic participation and monitoring, and distills this remarkable thoughtfulness and innovation. This is not a campaign or one-off event. The Global Assembly was this launch of a new permanent operating system for citizens at the global level to create solutions together. So I think to answer your question, Safia, what gives me the most hope right now is maybe the collective intelligence of humanity, which is something that we're not tapping into enough. And it's this collective intelligence and care that enables, I think, exactly what Mitzi was describing earlier. For these labels we've placed, for instance, the Global North, assembly members or participants from Europe, for instance, to hear from an assembly member in Pakistan who describes how her farming community was not aware of what was causing the climate changes that are deeply affecting their livelihoods, or members from the US learning from the experiences of a member who is a gold miner whose livelihood depends on fossil fuels and yet still would like to make the transition to phase out. And it's this peer-to-peer learning that's enabled by this diversity and the collective intelligence that exists amongst humanity as a whole that I think gives me the most hope.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yes, I think we definitely will have the collective answer between all of us. It's just fleshing it out and making sure it all works together. And Mitzi, what do you look for? Where are the signs for things are changing for the better? What do you look for? Hope and inspiration.
The signs that I'm about to talk about are things that have been there and are here for the longest time, but we've kind of ignored them. Sort of similar to what Susan said, but it is about that collective nature of people coming together. One very concrete example that I just experienced was at COP26 in the UN Climate Summit, not inside the buildings though, but outside, with the protesters and the people coming out in the streets and being able to meet activists from across the globe, from different backgrounds, and learning from each other and exchanging culture with each other. We would literally sing and dance in the streets during our protests, going beyond our cultures, going beyond our languages, and really just fighting for the same thing and being in solidarity for the same thing. And in the Philippines, there are these amazing communal farms where these farmers have taken back their land from the landlords and are planting sustainably. And they're encouraging people to come to them and to learn from them. And I just spent a few days with them, and it's these communities that we have so much to learn from, really. It's the fisher folk who are fighting against the multinational fishing companies, who are so ready to talk about their campaigns and their struggles and to learn about the climate crisis also. It's about these small exchanges between communities and between people, and then coming together and fighting for the same thing. I think that's what gives me so much hope, knowing that as long as we keep uniting and as long as we keep standing in solidarity with one another and learning from each other and holding each other accountable, and especially learning from the most marginalized sectors of society, then we can move forward together and find solutions together.
Thank you, Mitzi. We're going to move on to now. Where are the success stories? Where do you look to that's really making a difference? Who's on your radar? Maybe we start with Mitzi there?
It's similar to my previous answer already. The success stories are in the grassroots and in the people on the ground. These are the stories that you won't see on mainstream media. These are the stories that you won't usually hear about because, again, mainstream media either focuses on the Western world or people of privilege like me who can speak English and have access to the internet. It's not the stories from the fisher folk that have been blocking the multinational fishing companies from fishing in their areas and protecting the coast while they're doing that. It's not the people who are putting up blockades against the gold mining companies that are destroying the planet and displacing people's lives. But these are the people who are on the front lines, really, of protecting the environment. They usually don't call themselves climate activists or environmental activists because to them, it's not about fighting for the environment, but really fighting for their lives and their cultures and their livelihoods. And they know that to protect their lives, it's to protect the environment and the planet. And so it just goes hand in hand.
Thank you, Mitzi. Over to Susan, please.
Thanks, Safia. So I think to answer this question, I'm reflecting a bit on what I would define a success story. And within sort of the frame of the project that I've been describing, one of our aims from the beginning was that if this new generation is to redefine and rebuild a new infrastructure making at the global level, one of the key things that had to be at the heart of this project was an understanding that a process cannot be truly global unless it's authentically local. So I want to share with you some of the stories from this front where we really felt that we were starting to design a global decision-making process that not only brought people together globally, trickled down to be able to activate local communities. And to give you an example of this, we're talking about 100 people who are all speaking different languages. And so one of the sort of key questions that we had starting from the beginning of the design process was, how do we share knowledge amongst this group of people? We had a knowledge and wisdom committee composed of scientists and indigenous wisdom keepers from around the world design this learning journey. But unfortunately, that sort of booklet and learning journey was only available in And the choice was, how can we localize this transfer of information as much as possible to really meet each participant eye to eye? And what ended up happening was that in each of these 100 locations where a participant was chosen to engage in the Global Assembly, members of their community were talking about their neighbors, their friends, folks who are within their community and connected to these local organizations, came together to be able to crowd translate and include local examples to authentically contextualize this information material that had been created at the global level to meet the experiences and needs of each of these participants. And so we're really talking about an example in which it takes a village to be able to prepare an individual to take part in this global process. In the process of this village, this community supporting that one participant, that entire community is activated to start sort of processing the knowledge that's within these booklets, this learning journey, and connecting it to their day-to-day lives. And so this is just one sort of snapshot, I think, of an example that prefigures what we want going forward in global decision-making around climate. A process that's able to bring people together globally and allow us to speak to each other. Because really what we're talking about is a question of how do we intend to speak to one another to co-create solutions, but at the same time is able to reach grassroots communities and really activate the agency starting at that local community level. Safia, that's the example that I'd share.
Thank you, Suzanne. I really like that because I think it's important that we focus on the existing community structures and things that already exist, that we make sure that the solutions that are coming out of these conversations actually really work practically for the people who they're directly going to affect. So yes, thank you very much. Very good answers to the both of you.